Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast, your home for all things Chelsea FC. Nick, Dan, and myself cover all the match reviews from the latest Chelsea matches. We cover the team news and even throw you some exclusive interviews. Thank you already for being an awesome listener. And you know what? Let's jump right in.
And welcome back to a very special non-European midweek podcast from your boys at London's Blue. That is right. You know, I wasn't sure if we're going to pull this one off today. We're like, hey, do we pod? Do we not, Dan? But then all of a sudden the final whistle blew, and I think, judging by the responses on Twitter, it's almost like we were called into action by people out there to review whatever it is you want to call it.
Yeah, it was the Chelsea meltdown bat signal equivalent. Just popped up into the air mic, and we heeded the call.
Yeah, you know, actually, I'm here to talk about Chelsea women winning 7-0 over Yeovil Town and advancing to the Conti Cup quarterfinals. So
there we go.
I know not
that
the pain
is the
you speak
right
of.
idea. That is the right idea.
I'm in. I'm all in for that. Unfortunately, Nick is absolutely bombarded with work, which is completely understandable as it's a Wednesday. So in his place, rightfully so, David D. Peasy, our man from We Ain't Got No History, joining us back on the podcast. How's it going?
It's going all right. Apparently, I'm not bombarded by work.
No way.
Free, not unemployed, but still here.
You seem very poised and ready to take this on.
Psyched.
Awesome.
I'm almost as ready as Chelsea in the second half.
Yikes. All right. Well, before we get into it, as always, we do have iTunes reviews. Dan, we've got 3 new friends.
Yeah, we do. 2 from outside the U.S., which is always a delight to us. We had Jesper Farso from Denmark giving us some 5-star love. John Cambo from Ireland, which was also another 5-star shout. And then within the U.S., I don't know if it's in the contiguous 48 states or not. That's up for debate. But FCBMD3 saying that he was loving our episodes and now is looking forward to the transfer window episodes. And maybe after this match, aren't we all? Question mark.
Right. A whole nother thing coming. I mean, a month ago, you probably wouldn't be that excited for it. Now, all of a sudden, I feel like it's a lot more of a deal. So a huge shout out to, and I did not make this up, The Floppy Ostrich on Patreon. I don't know why we didn't get a name out of you. We just went with your alias, but a huge thank you to you for joining. As always, you get first dibs on questions for our questions episodes, and you will get some sweet perks and swag. At Nick Play hitting us on Twitter and just tagging all of us, replying to us saying, why can't we have nice things? And I mean, Dave, this is obviously directed towards you. So I guess I'll let you have the first stab at this.
I'm sorry Nick isn't here, but, you'll have to make do with me, I guess.
To be fair, I think they were talking about the game, not you individually.
Okay. Whew. Thanks, Nick Play. Why can't we have nice things? I don't know. It's because it's midweek and a Wednesday, on a cold Wednesday night in the West Midlands. I don't know. Haven't we gotten used to this over the last few years? This is what the team is, and old Maurizio Sarri is learning it slowly as well.
Yeah, I guess so. Mike, any stab at why this season we just went from having only nice things to all of a sudden no nice things?
Well, I think it goes down to, it's better to be lucky than good. I think we had a force field at times, deflecting open goals from other teams away from our end, and our luck ran out a little bit, Maybe the ghost of Chicharito. We had another Mexican striker, once again, rise up and kick us in the ass. So, just not our day.
I think the inverse element of that, though, is that we haven't had the luck in front of goal. So, I mean, to lose all luck is a bad thing.
Is it luck? Is it?
Wait, Dan, so you're telling me if you don't score goals, you're not expecting to win matches?
Yeah, that is factually accurate. Yes, Michael.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and before we run into the match review, remind you guys that we are partnering with Classic Football Shirts. So make sure to go head up them. London Pod is the discount code, but also we are actually going to be doing a live podcast from their store in London, December 29th. For those of you that are going on the trip with us, what a perk this is for you guys. For everyone else that lives in London or nearby and want to come, you are all invited as well. And for our lucky listeners not able to be there, I'm just kidding. We're better in person, I promise. We will record it and post it for you all to enjoy as well. So anyways, mark it on your calendars if you're there. If you have questions about coming and visiting because you're from there or you're going to be in London at the same time, get in contact. Email, DM, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the normal ways to do that. But let's go ahead and move on to the match review. It was Wolverhampton in the Premier League at the Molineux Stadium. It was Wednesday, December 5th, 2018. Mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. The day it all ended for Chelsea. Wolves 2, Chelsea 1. We didn't even bother to score predictions at this point because I can only imagine there were 0 score predictions that even had Chelsea losing this one. But Dan, run us through the lineup, as it was a first midweek Premier League match that Sarri really had to take serious.
Yeah, so you did see a little bit of rotation, not between the sticks, with Kepa staying in the starting position there. Rudiger, Alonso, Azpilicueta held down spots even after Alonso's last performance was suspect to the point of being substituted off. Christensen comes in, though, for Luis. Cesc Fabregas comes in for Jorginho, Conte, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek ahead of Kovacic, ahead of Barkley, make up the midfield 3. Eden Hazard, Willian, and Alvaro Morata started as the 3 up top. The substitutes included Willy Caballero, Davide Zappacosta, David Luiz, Jorginho, Kovacic, Pedro, and Olivier Giroud, all of them whom looked miserable on that bench throughout the entirety of the match. So, I don't know which position it was potentially worse to be in, on the bench or actually in the match, but no one looked on fire today, I think.
Anyone look on fire to you, David?
Anyone look on fire? No. Loftus-Cheek did all right initially. I mean, I guess the whole team did all right in the first half. And then it all kind of fell apart. One interesting thing I read actually was that Loftus-Cheek made it almost 3 years since his last Chelsea Premier League start, April 2016. So wow. been a long time coming, and he celebrated with a decent goal. So that was good.
I'd say so. I mean,
yeah.
What else can you really ask from the guy, Mike? Crazy kind of a run for him. Obviously, we can pair this into the goals. 18th minute, Ruben Loftus-Cheek officially credited with the goal. Assist Eden Hazard, obviously a bigger assist to the Wolves defender. Confidence. I mean, for him to take that shot, to turn to the top of the box and just shoot it right away. I mean, he's got instincts right now going for goal.
Yeah, I think it's that younger generation. They have the confidence.
Millennials, right? Jeez.
Well, they know that you can't score goals unless you shoot. They're not afraid to rip them. And, be it somebody get a rebound or, Cody has a beautiful header into his own net.
This is a sweet finish. Right down header textbook.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that Wolves basically scored all the goals today. But
eat your heart out, Phil Jones.
Yeah. So
it did remind me a little bit of people criticize David Luiz a lot on the one goal against Spurs. But one of the, at least one of the things I was always told when I was learning to play defense really badly was if you're not 100% sure you're going to block the shot, don't block it, because you're just kind of going to deflect it in random places. So whatever Cody was trying to do there to go with his head was really, really bad shot blocking, so to say.
100% true.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
that's an interesting little angle.
Yeah, it's a bit of a big deal. I mean, you deflect it, especially as a goalkeeper, so many bodies in the way. Absolutely left Rui Patricio with no chance. As Mike mentioned, Wolves pretty much scored all the goals. So moving on to the 59th minute, Raul Jimenez assist Morgan Gibbs-White. Dan, I mean, this was a big momentum change in the game. Chelsea were comfortable at 1-0. Wolves, I mean, they had been asking some questions, but nothing crazy. It almost just looked like they caught us on a break. and we had no answers.
Yeah, smart pass forward from the midfield of Wolves, gets to, on Jimenez's feet, and he basically just slices right between the crack of Marcus Alonso and Andreas Christensen to, be right where he needs to plop it right underneath the ball sack of Kepa Arrizabalaga. And it was
quite under his hand. He wasn't Courtois. He was short-footed.
But it was not a good look for Kepa. It was not a good look for Christensen. It wasn't a good look for Relayar. It was.
Well, shout out for Fabregas for getting absolutely trounced by whoever Morgan Gibbs-White is.
Morgan Gibbs-White looked great. This
well,
game.
Who didn't against old Cesc? I love you, Cesc Fabregas. Playing more midfield.
The only problem is he was making other teams' players look better instead of ours, which is the inverse of what you want.
See, Brandon, where are you not beating them up for hating on Cesc? Why is it always me who's notorious for?
Because that's your job, Mike. Okay.
Yeah.
You have one job. You got to do it. You got to take the heat for it.
Played 90 minutes. What are you guys complaining about? He got the participation medal.
No, Cesc is never supposed to play 90 minutes. I mean, look, if I wanted to watch a 30-plus-year-old run around in midfield and not do anything, I would just do that at, pickup matches. I'd watch myself be inadequate in the midfield. I think he has a job that he can do, but I mean, we watched him struggle in a 4-man midfield, and then we moved to a 3-man midfield with him. And what we saw was they just exploited it down the center, and then kicked it out, to the left wing or the right wing, and had a field day on Alonso. It really, it changed the whole game to me.
All right. Well, the single punch turned into double punch, 63rd minute. Diogo Jota, I'm sure it's Spanish, so it's probably a soft J. Matt Doherty assist. At that soccer guy 17 tweeting at us saying, "What on earth was Rudiger doing on the second goal? He's got to have better awareness than that." Oh, what up, Mike?
I would have to say, what the hell was the entire back five doing?
Okay, deflecting.
No. If you watch, Willian throws his hands up and everyone stops. Ruben had a chance to make a play on the ball, and everyone. I mean, Dave's in front of Rudiger. Rudiger's like on the plane.
Yeah, let's shout out to Azpilicueta, who's playing center back for some reason at that point.
Yeah,
which I have no idea how that happened.
The most infuriating thing to continue to watch this side do is to be aggrieved when they don't get a call that then leads to some type of free kick for the opposition, some wonky goal, and I need to go back, or I need to find, I'll pay someone to do this, to go back and find the number of goals Chelsea have conceded because someone has thrown their hands up in the air and people start looking in the other direction for the official to do what they should be doing potentially. Because also, caveat, John Moss was horrible, but ultimately, you do have to play the whistle. You have to play through into the situation, and everybody looked like they just okay, well, we should get a whistle here, and that didn't happen. We shouldn't have been dribbling. We shouldn't have been dribbling across the front at that point. That was awful.
Well,
it's the same. John Moss got a lot wrong, but not that one. I'm sorry, but he really it wasn't a foul to me at all. And I think
and through the pace of the game, through the run of the game, Willian should not have expected anything, knowing how that game had been officiated up to that point. So I'm a little curious to the thought process behind that, because that started this domino effect of awful decisions by the entire team.
I feel like we got rope-a-doped. Sorry.
I think you need to finish that.
we got rope-a-doped by the ref, because if you watch the beginning of the game, we were getting a ton of calls, and he basically reached for that fourth yellow card, and he's like, you know what? I've hit my, my required amount of yellow cards, and I'm not reaching for my, my pocket again. And it was just all of a sudden, all of those fouls, the cumulative fouls, just kind of, it was play on, and he wasn't going to call anything again. I think. 18 fouls. I know people are ripping Willian, but there were some very, very heavy tackles on our players, and I think you saw us wear down due to some of those fouls that really, not much happened for it, and it gave Wolves a second chance.
There was an impressive amount of fouling, that's for sure. And what was interesting to me was this was the fourth game for Johnny Moss in Chelsea this season, and in the previous 3 games, he's given out a total of 2 yellow cards. So it was, if they recall, if there's an expectation of how he's going to call a game or what he's going to do, this was like completely opposite of what he has done with Chelsea up to this point. And then somewhere through the middle of the game, he switched again. So if there's one thing that's worse than the bad referee, it's just an inconsistent referee. And it's just within the game, there was no consistency on what he was calling, what he wasn't calling, what he was giving yellows for, what he wasn't giving yellows for. It was all over the place, as one would expect out of any referee, really, I guess. But still doesn't excuse Willian throwing his hands in the air. That said, 90% of the time, he probably gets that call by throwing his hands in the air. To me, the bigger issue was everybody stopped playing. It's okay, fine. Willian stops playing because he tries to win the foul, but no, everybody else should not be stopping just because Willian threw his hands in the air.
Agreed.
Right. And the problem from us is that you're having a bad day when both teams are yelling at you every time. Because,
well, the foul on Willian was the pullback by the other guy, not Moutinho, because Moutinho stepping in front of him is not a foul.
Correct.
But previously, Willian did get pulled back, and he maintained control, so that should have been a foul. But that was never going to get called. So
exactly. I thought there was a foul before that.
Right.
It wasn't called. Right.
Yes.
It goes back to inconsistencies way bad, because I've actually been in matches where you will talk to the opponent and be like, man, this dude is bad. And he's like, yeah, you almost bond over it. Not today. The inconsistency was a huge factor. But look, I think that Wolves just won the physicality battle, and that's what it came down to tonight. But anyways, let's dig into some of the stuff. Specifically, want to talk about the fact that we saw a ton of rotation tonight. A lot of people had been asking for this. A lot of people have been, saying they want to see Christensen, they want to see Loftus-Cheek. Well, you got that, but you also got Fabregas on for Jorginho, and it kind of
are you
raised
not
some
entertained?
Questions. Right? So the question here is, was it worth it? But I mean, that's a hindsight's 2020. In that consideration, I think that Maurizio was definitely looking, at the matches he had bookshelved on each end. Obviously, you had Europa League last week, and we've had a lot of matches in a short amount of time. Probably felt like, especially heading into City, David, that rotation was essentially a must in this sense. I think that Ruben was probably earned. Cesc was out of necessity, and Christensen is more of here's another chance. Show me what you can do. And this is probably his best performance out of the lot he's had this season.
He only gave up the 1 goal. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty standard rotation if we ignore the fact that it was a Premier League game, right? Because we've had the last couple of times we played midweek, he basically rotated the whole team, but that was because there were Europa League matches and there were basically dead rubber games already. Earlier in the season, when we played the first Europa League game, maybe the first 2, he only rotated maybe 5 or 6 players. So in that sense, it was pretty standard. And I mean, if the old cliche is if you can't beat Wolves with this team, then it's what do you want? It's the team was good enough to beat a team who hadn't won a game in 6 straight. They had one draw and 5 losses coming into this game. So, it's just imagine the response if Sarri basically started the exact same team he started on Sunday, and then where people would be like, well, how are we going to play on Saturday now? You just basically gave it away. So, it's a lose-lose if you lose, as they say.
Do you think so? I mean, I think he got the tactics wrong. I think,
Whoa! He has the same tactics every time.
No, I mean,
there's no plan B.
No,
there's only plan A.
It's plan A, and then there's plan A.
Yeah, well, rotationally speaking, in my opinion, If we were having this conversation about having a shit game and we played like shit, it should be after the City match. I think that from a top 4 battle, these 3 points were very, very important, especially having United and Arsenal play each other.
Yeah. I see what you're saying in terms of like game theory, and like you want to maximize these 3 points as opposed to the Saturday, which is probably 0 points regardless of who you play. But like just in terms of the look and the optics of the situation, I think if he would have played full strength, first choice this game, and then rotated half the team for Saturday, people would have just lost their shit completely.
We got to see the opposite side of people like losing their collective. You know what though? Again, I think you made the point. It was lose either way.
Right.
I think in my mind the individuals he chose to rotate for the most part made a lot of sense. I think Christensen's getting his opportunity. Loftus-Cheek, as Brandon said, an earned opportunity. Morata coming in, Willian coming in. That side on paper should have been good enough to complete this game fully.
And Jorginho has had some, less impactful games lately, so him getting rotated out isn't that surprising either, really.
Yeah, but then when you throw in Mark Sanchez in the form of Cesc Fabregas, it's just like, we should really be calling it Jorginho ball.
I think you're complimenting Mark Sanchez somehow, I don't know if I appreciate it.
I think I'm I don't know. I apologize to Cesc because he is no Mark Sanchez.
He was the guy who butt fumbled. Come on, man. Like there's no level of equivalency to a guy who's won. Cesc has at least won stuff. Mark Sanchez is basically a joke to the point where he now plays for the Washington Redskins.
There is a level below Fabregas right now. That's worth something.
Is that Danny Drinkwater?
The only question really with the rotation is that Alonso played, and if Alonso had been rotated out for Emerson, I doubt there would have been as much inquest as to who played and who didn't play.
Or the other one would have been Azpilicueta going to left back and then Zappacosta playing on the right-hand side.
Please spare me, Zappacosta.
Well, I'm just saying, rotationally, though, those are the two options, and it seemed like, at least in the last match, that's something that Sarri was more comfortable doing, necessitated by the fact Alonso was having a really poor game, but it seemed like he was more comfortable doing that.
It's because Emerson wasn't on the bench, right?
Yeah.
I think Emerson, I don't know what he's done or what hasn't done, but he clearly has not earned anybody's trust. Yeah. But he doesn't even make the bench.
He's earned mine, but that obviously doesn't matter for anything.
Special guest on the pod, Emerson.
You won't hear me calling for his name anymore over Alonso because I already bought the Alonso kit. I'm committed, so it is what it is. Speaking of Alonso, apparently he's not good at crossing. So at Chelsea Loan Army tweeting that in 2018-19, Alonso is at 4 for 54, which is 7%. Aspi is 13 for 55, which is 23%. And then in comparison, Benjamin Mendy is at 28%, 10 for 35. Angie Robertson is 6 for 36, 16%. Ben Davies, 4 of 18 for 22%. Sead Kolasinac for 4 for 15 for 26%, and Lucas Shaw 8 for 34 at 23%. I can't read numbers tonight. I'm sorry, people. Either way, everyone is like in the 20s for percentages, and poor Marcos is down at 7%. My only question is, does that take into account if they win it versus our offender? I mean,
this is a terrible stat. You should not be reading this. What you should be taking away from it
all day, and that just
we should be taking away from it is Marcos Alonso has crossed almost twice as much as all these other people in the list. Why are we crossing so much?
That is a whole nother can of worms that I don't.
Yeah, you would imagine with what Sarri has done that you should not need to be crossing the ball this much. And
it's vertical tiki taka, not crossing tiki taka.
Well, and that also was the problem with the way that Cesc was playing. I think Nazar pointed out too that it was definitely distinctly different in a form.
Oh yeah, he loves those lobs.
Those long lobs. Just he really loves the badminton style of shuttlecocking it to the other player.
Well, when you have three towering players in Pedro, Willian, and Hazard, I mean, why not just bomb it into the air? I mean,
Pedro's a mental giant for sure.
Nothing better than a short guy header. So, anyways, the question is just over the rotation. I think for a lot of us, the jury's still out on, was it enough? Was it not too much? I mean, come on. It is such a hard act to really, I guess, a hard line to balance in that sense. I like Mike say, oh, we got City. I mean, Matt White, WH on Twitter, was saying, not sure why we rested players for this game. This was an easier 3 points to win than Man City on Saturday. You take the points, always take the points. If we lose on Saturday, we fall out of the top four. We have a lot of work to do. Again, game theory idea saying you take the points in front of you. There's no way we're beating Man City at the weekend. Now we'll probably beat Man City just to really throw Chelsea Twitter into a huge shitstorm. But, hey, one match at a time, right? One loss at a time tonight. So, I don't know. Dan, do you want to get into this mentality DM that we got on Instagram? Set the stage for this a little bit on the team's mentality or lack thereof?
Yeah, I'm going to try. We've been kind of punchy so far, so I'm going to try to read it very calmly so that we can bring everybody's emotional level down a little bit. More NPR style, so we'll also kind of have some smooth jazz in the background. Or, it's itits.om. I'm sorry. The phonetic pronunciation.
That's not what it says.
Jeez.
Commenting on Sarri's words after the game about mentality is a reoccurring theme since Jose Mourinho wasn't the coach. Well, he was actually manager, but neither here or there. There seems to be a grit that has been lost, and we can't see out games like we used to. Is this down to a lack of quality leadership in the squad? It took Sarri months to decide on a captain this year, Cahill. Unfortunately, due to the quality of center backs right now, he's not getting into the lineup, which means his leadership capabilities are diminished to the practice field. The only other passionate leaders I see on the pitch seem to be Luis and Jorginho, who didn't play today. There seems to be no one vocal, getting on the players, picking players up, keeping the team focused on the end goal. Aspie tries, but doesn't seem to really have it click. When does the leadership and passion, and then it's cut off? Beyond that, I can't finish reading it.
I'd like to point out that Gary Cahill used to cry on the pitch when we lost, so I'm not really sure he's the passionate vocal leader we're all looking for, but go on.
He's definitely emotional. He definitely has an emotional connection to the sport.
Yes. He wears his heart. He wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah, I mean, he's also, we'll do the FBI, taking a bullet for the president type dive to stop a goal. So, I mean, there's that
Flex
as well.
his biceps.
Yeah, I mean, although Giroud is giving him a run for his money in that regard. I think the larger part here, and this idea, kind of transitions into what Sarri said after the match, where he talked about the fact that I think we played very well for 55 minutes. After the goal, it was an accident because we were in full control of the match. We were suddenly a different team. I don't know why. I'm really worried, not for the result, but the fact that we didn't respond to the first goal. If you had asked me the same question after 55 minutes, I would say I was happy. We lost everything. It can happen, but I don't think it. It was without reaction. And then followed up to say, I don't know. I think it's more important to talk about our attitude after the first goal. We were not the same team. It was not for me. I have to understand why. Only for a goal. We had to play 35 minutes after that. And this whole idea or concept of, does this team have the resiliency to bounce back when the cards seem stacked against them, when they are looking down the barrel? Can they make the determination? Can they make the right move to go in and come in and kill the game? And I would say, at least right now, Mike, I don't necessarily know if that same level of leadership or kind of on the pitch determination is really present in this exact moment.
Yeah, I always struggle with this, and I know Nick is always very much a rah-rah leadership, and having played for a long time, there have been moments in which I've been inspired to, run my ass off because of something people said, but I think most of the time it's within the player to, sometimes you just have a shitty performance, and getting lifted up is difficult, but I look at this as more of, Sarri doesn't have the pieces that he needs to run the machine that he wants. And what we're seeing is that he kind of cobbled together, a makeshift vehicle, and we're kind of watching the wheels fall off a little bit. And it's really tough, from rotational aspect. We're looking at Cahill, a center back who's not playing. We're looking at Drinkwater, a midfielder who's not playing. Moses, who we don't even talk about anymore. So we're down to very few pieces, and you have to wonder if we had a healthy Barkley, would that have changed things? Would we have seen Ruben in the middle of the three midfield and Barkley to the left? I don't know. I don't think we have the pieces that are needed to compete at the level of the other teams, and I think we're kind of seeing what I expected at the beginning of the season because we've been found out, or it's just not as successful.
It's been interesting, David. So Maurizio's talked a lot about attitude and mentality in the last few matches. I think that there was, I don't know, maybe it just wasn't an issue because we were winning, we were pressing teams, and we're getting, good turnovers and their defensive third, and we were able to go at them. But if this is like now the third or fourth match where we've had poor results and he's talked about mentality, I mean, what is up for him to do to get this group to kind of turn it around? I also think that the team's lost a lot of energy. I'm just trying to figure out what has changed from that big 12-match unbeaten run.
I'm not really sure anything really changed that much other than the actual score lines. It's undoubtedly we were getting a fair bit lucky to get a 12-match unbeaten run. Put that together, it was games like the Arsenal win come to mind where they probably should have scored many, many more goals than the 2 that they got. And, I think after games, he never really shied away from this. He always mentioned things like, we need to work on the system. I distinctly remember him talking about one win where he specifically said it had nothing to do with tactics and everything to do with like individual quality of players. And now it's the real concerning part for me, and I know this isn't actually answering the mentality question, but the real concerning part is that the system itself, or how we're executing the system, doesn't seem to be improving at all. But now our results are kind of matching the product and the quality on the pitch. What like today's, say, 55 minutes of sort of sorry ball that we might have seen today, and then the rest of it just was kind of a whole lot of nothing. So it's I think it's where the level that we've been expecting and the level that we've been told that this is our level. And now it's happening, and now we have to deal with it. Every time he's asked about Manchester City, he says they're on a whole different level. And when we were only 2 points behind them, it was kind of tough to understand that, or tough to believe it and not say that it's defeatist attitude or whatever. But here we are now. What he's saying is coming true. Whether it's kind of like Mourinho calling us little horses a few years ago, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and like, why are you talking down your own players? But some of it, sometimes you just have to be realistic, and you have to understand where you are at and how far you have to go and what you have to do to get there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, there's a couple things that kind of go into that too. We are fielding one of the older lineups in the Premier League. I think a couple of them have been, over 28 and 28 and a half years on average age. Watford is the one single-handedly fielding the oldest lineup on the regular basis this season, but we're up there as well. And we're kind of we are now what our record says we were. Maybe in the beginning of the season we weren't because we outperformed, and Sarri did a little bit of a reverse script, because when he took over Napoli initially, that's when the rough times started. It was the first 6 or 7 games where it was losses and draws and maybe a win, versus it started off magically here, and now we're kind of seeing the struggle of potentially players who are so far along in their game, maybe the willingness to be coached or to execute the system is not what they want? Or then the question is like, is it the fact that maybe the coach is not as effective? And I would say it's probably more of the former, given the fact you look at Barkley making some level of improvement under Sarri. You look at Ruben Loftus-Cheek continuing to excel in his play style. So then the question becomes, well, if we have all these players who don't want to play the style or aren't going to commit to executing the game plan and are going to decide to lob balls versus keep it on the ground, keep it short, recycle, and move it forward, now we're getting to the point of a little bit of a conflicting ideas and mentality on the pitch that's probably more unnerving and frightening as to how this plays out.
It's the mentality that we're showing is what we've shown for many years now. As the previous comment mentioned, Jose used to talk about this all the time as well, comparing it to his old Chelsea guard, who were the fighters and the never say die and the complete determination. Those sorts of qualities are almost seem a little archaic in the modern game. I mean, you look at all the other Premier League teams. Who are these teams that are out there with their supreme mentality and fighting back from adversity and all these qualities we're expecting out of Chelsea? It's the modern player. What we're seeing are people who are affected by confidence. They build a good performance after a good performance, and they can snowball that into a title. Or you get like the even seasons where it's bad performance after bad performance, and you kind of just give up. And it's kind of, you don't perform to your 100%, you perform to your 90 or 80%, and just call it a good day. As just the trend that we're seeing. Manchester City are steamrolling everybody, but a couple of years ago they're exactly where Chelsea were. And really, what has changed? They've learned confidence through their system, but if they were in this situation, would we really expect them to buckle down? And the Gabriel Jesuses and the Benjamin Mendy's and the whoever's there, Bernardo Silva's, are really gonna scrap and fight and put in that old Chelsea mentality to get you back into the 3 points? I don't think so.
Well, they just want to, they'll just buy the new players they need until they get to where they're at now.
Well, sure.
I do think that you make a really good point about kind of modern players, and I think we're seeing a couple things in my opinion. One, from a statistical point of view, you knew that we were going to drop a match eventually, and I think the draws that we had early on, those killed us, because had we picked up 2 points at West Ham and 2 points somewhere else, we would not be in the position that we're at. So we were kind of on that weird, we were doing well, but we the unbeaten streak was great, but we weren't maximizing points. And you knew that when the bottom did fall out, or when we started dropping real points, we were going to be in trouble, because Spurs and Arsenal were catching up despite us not losing. I do think, from Dan's point about age, I think what we've seen from every other top 6 team, we're seeing in the modern game a lot of speed. And Chelsea is an older team, and we don't have, to be honest, we don't have the speed that I think that we match up against other squads. So I think, you look at a Wolves, and what are they going to have? They're going to have lesser talents, but they're going to have kids who are really fast, and that's going to make it tough on, Alonso, regardless of how tactically or clinical they are. They're still going to have loads of speed. So I think, Sarri has a plan, but this is definitely not the defense that I think that he wants. And overall, I think we're kind of showing that we're a mid-table team when, a certain Belgian is not on fire, because, from a statistical point of view, Conte's not scoring, Jorginho's not scoring, Kovacic has not scored, and our strikers aren't scoring. So unless our center backs, we're impotent from set pieces, we can have all the corners and everything else we want. We're not doing anything with it. So we're basically counting on, Eden to score goals, maybe Alonso, maybe one other person. And I think it's a lot easier for teams to handle or to mark those players to take us out of matches.
Yeah, a good point would be is that we are closer right now to 8th place Manchester United than we are to 1st place Manchester City.
Yeah.
On points.
Yeah. Whatever. Boo. No one wants to hear that.
It's reality. So, reality is supposed to be sobering. We're approaching like there are fixable solutions to what we're seeing right now, and that comes through continuing to train appropriately, to field the right lineup, to integrate the appropriate players into the squad, to buy smart on the transfer market, and to acquire a director of football. Will all these things happen? Probably not, but there are sensible solutions to getting this back on the right track.
And you know what that solution is? With City failing to, or going to be kicked out of the Champions League next year, when we finish 5th this season, we'll be fine because, it won't, first place won't matter, No,
we'll just win the Europa League. That's it. That's the easy way to get in. That should be our
well, I mean,
our other way to get in.
It's just about expectations. I think now that, it's pretty clear we're not going to challenge for the title. It was clear before, but now we can maybe stop talking about it. He's asked about Manchester City in every press conference, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's the target of the season is to finish top 4. As as lame as that is from a Chelsea winning perspective, finish top 4 and maybe win a cup. And now we can concentrate on that, and that's the level of the team. And we're despite the worst results recently, we're still on track to actually do that. And so that's what we need to concentrate on instead of worrying about we're going to lose games. This is not going to be the last game that Chelsea lose this season. I know that might be shocking.
Hold the press there.
That's craziness.
You're telling me that
we're just going to have to deal with it. And the concerning part really is Sarri saying we conceded and suddenly we lost the plot. So that part we saw with Conte a lot last season. That's why we ended up losing to teams like Burnley, because we concede in bunches. We conceded 1 goal and suddenly it was conceded 3 goals.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly kind of what happened today. Conceded 1 and 3 minutes later there was a second. So that's the sort of mentality or whatever that needs to happen on the pitch in a game where you can't call timeouts. So it's up to the players to solve that.
Yeah, it's tough because this was really the perfect trap game if there was going to be one. It's a 2 days rest.
Yeah.
Shitty weather, cold, and then on top of it, despite how bad Wolves have been, they're only 2 matches in however 6 or 8 that haven't been losses, haven't been against Arsenal and United. So it tells you that this team, for whatever reason, can figure out.
They drew with City too earlier this season.
Exactly. Even a better point. So they have a way to step up for what's their big matches, their Super Bowls of the season, to pull out some results. So we kind of. I love what we do under Sarri's system, but I feel like sometimes we put ourselves to sleep because we get this, we're like, yeah, we're going to have 60, 70% possession. That's great. But it's kind of like, well, what happens when we don't have possession, or what happens when we concede? And it's like we lull ourselves into a sense of security. And I think had Eden finished that early cross from Conte, he could have done so much better on that. And we go up 2-0. 20 minutes or 30 minutes into the match, we're talking about a different team and different mentalities that we're going to face from other squads. Because if they know that they can make it to half 1-0 and it's just an open game and that they'll just wait and try and catch us on the counter, especially, at left back, I think they know that they can just pull it in, put 8 to 10 men behind the ball and just wait for us to kind of have our collective
so you gotta finish your chances.
Exactly. It's
really hard to win if you don't finish chances.
I mean, Chelsea's expected goals for this match were 1.36, and it was 0.86 for Wolves. So, I mean, that's the difference there. They took their 2 and they made them above the expected, and we took our 3 shots on target and 17 total shots and produced a losing effort.
Yep.
So, we talk about a lot of issues, and I think we should maybe, Brandon, transition into the last question, which is kind of what people are wondering what happens in January. But it is very clear that our attackers do not score goals right now, and it is a problem.
For you, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, the biggest problem.
So mature.
Everyone wants to go.
Your mom says
sign?
it's a problem.
They say, who should we sign? What positions are important? I mean, the striker, like, above and beyond, we're not scoring enough goals. Nick in the text says, like, oh, well, Hazard's not on, this team's not on. I mean, I remember when Diego Costa would just take the ball and he would go score, essentially. And we don't have someone who can do that. Giroud is great hold-up play. He even took a shot today, which was awesome with his feet. But it's just not something you see a lot. And Morata is just another petulant performance from him. I bet he will do great, but it will be somewhere else. His time at Chelsea is just not clicked the way anyone could really have wanted. And I think that it would be best for all parties if we moved on. So we can all just agree that the striker is the position. My only question is, do you think that Mauricio is going to go do something in January, realistically? If we look at this, he always said that he's not a checkbook manager. So if you take that out of the equation, you can try to bring Mishi back. You can try to promote Abraham. I don't know if those are great answers, realistically. I mean, David, if assuming those are both viable and available, do you think that one of those two would make a big difference?
It was Michi and who?
Tammy.
Abraham.
Oh,
Tammy.
Tammy. No, no. I think no. I don't mean it that way. I like Tammy Abraham, but recalling him is logistically not possible at the moment because Aston Villa have banked their entire season on him, and if we recall him, then we're screwing over that team and our agreement. And there's something to be said for not going back on our word because we said we'd loan him there for a whole season just because he's doing well. And our strikers are doing badly. I don't think that's a good situation for anybody involved.
So
Michi, yeah, Michi is a theory because he's really not scoring either, but he's also not really playing that consistently in terms of starters minutes. You think that he is a decent fit for what Sarri's trying to do, just because of his mobility and his ball skills. We saw a few times under Conte, but never got utilized because he didn't fit Conte's system. You would think he'd fit Sarri's system, but here we are with Morata and Giroud instead. It's tough. I don't really expect us to do anything in January, but that's kind of my default position for any January transfer window. I think Morata will be sold, but not in January. I think his time is up at the end of this season. Sarri's comment before today's game was pretty telling. Him talking about a player he had at one of his other teams that was also, mentally fragile, which is a second time now he's specifically called Morata mentally fragile. And he's just, if Sarri's here beyond this season, he's not going to deal with this nonsense anymore. I don't know. I think the solution might be a bit more internal, and we might try something more along the lines of what Napoli ended up doing after Higuain left them, and playing Hazard as a center forward or Pedro as the Dries Mertens sort of pseudo striker, and actually buy completely into Sarri's system, where we are doing the movement and the passing and breaking the lines instead of going out wide every time, trying to create an overload on either left or right, and then swinging in across for Morata or Giroud to attack or whatever, which is fairly pedestrian, is in what Sarri ball could be. So I think that's more of a likely solution. Sarri actually making the slight tweak to the system where he drops both of these lumps and keeps them in reserve. Maybe if we grow desperate towards the end and do the Mourinho style of looking for a late goal and just put on a big body and lump it in and see what happens.
Big bodies. Get the center backs up there. Get everyone up there.
Exactly.
Let's do this.
Get all Robert Huth. He's a free agent.
Oh, man.
He can put him up there if we need a late goal.
Yeah. Don't tease.
Oh,
all right. Well, at the end of the day, I think this was a super frustrating match for everyone watching. When we even had RCVM Newland saying, I might have thrown shit at my TV screen had I watched. Didn't even watch, and they were that frustrated, which is quite crazy. So I think that, wrapping up, it's a tough one, tough pill to swallow. I think, Mike, you summed up pretty well saying it was the perfect trap match, and it ended up being just that. Dan even quit on his man of the match duties because it was so poor. Any defense?
No, I mean, it was. I mean, someone though did point out at Greg R. Gardner saying that RLC is the clear winner here, and he got the goal. So I would agree with that assessment. He wanted a reverse man of the match poll, which I'm not going to do. We knew it was a bad day. Maybe what I'll do next time is I'll just do it as a man of the match poll, but then fill in characters from a particular comic or a TV show, and then do that way. Because I am a troll.
Yeah.
Truth. Speak it. All right. Well, to wrap this one up, I just want to ask the question from Thomas at Hildy_T7 saying, would you take this loss, or would you take it easier, in exchange for beating City? Silliness, but I'm going to ask. Mike.
No, I'm not.
Could you sleep better tonight if you knew we were going to beat City?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But I mean, that's crap question. It's one of those things where I'm
you
not.
Put it in the script.
I'm not going on. I know, but it's that. Let me go on the record for Chelsea Twitter for me to say I want to see the club lose. I mean, I don't know.
Wouldn't you always sleep better if you knew that we're gonna beat City?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great. I would love to see.
What's this result got to do with it?
I still, not to loop back, but I actually expect us to spend heavily, or at least for a few players in the winter. I think that with what we're seeing, that it's not working. I think Sarri's basically saying hey, look, your dream of Champions League is slipping away. You better give me 1 or 2 or 3 players. And, there's always the miracle in Milan because our boy Bakayoko is supposedly playing amazing.
The miracle in Milan.
They're going to buy him before we get to recall him.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's always that.
So how about this, Dan? We have a tweet from @DanSilv73. It's not to us, just in general. He tweeted this. It says, winning football is better than sexy football.
Yeah, yes, that is true. It was nice to win 2 trophies with Antonio Conte, even though there was elements of, quote, suffering, unquote, that went along with it. I think, Mike, to your point, Chelsea don't change the players first. They usually make another change if they do want to make that movement. So before, I don't think he's going to go to the board saying, well, I need more players to make it so you guys can be top 4. He owns part of that piece. And so, ultimately, he, with his players, has to figure out what he needs to do. And look, I like the idea of what David suggested of putting Ed in potentially in that center forward role, putting Pedro on the right, and then maybe we can even say Willian on the better left, or even a Callum Hudson-Odoi. I would feel more comfortable and confident with that lineup scoring goals, as long as Eden Hazard can remove himself from the continual fog of Real Madrid and injury and actually start scoring some goals again.
So, PZ, to you, Dan Levine tweeting, that fine line between Sarri ball and Scolari ball.
I was waiting for somebody to make the comparison. We've had 2 idealistic managers in the last 15 years. One was Scolari, and the other one was Andre Villas-Boas. And we all know both how both ended up not seeing the spring. So, I think Sarri's got his work cut out for him. It's all fine and dandy to be wedded to your system and all. Everybody praise it left and right. One of our friends, we ain't got no history, is a French writer, analyst called Sebastian. I don't know how to speak French, so I'm just going to call him Sebastian Chapuis. You may follow him on Twitter or read his couple articles on the blog, but I like that one of his tweets was, no wonder all the opposing managers praise Sarri ball, because it's very easy to play against. It's not necessarily easy to beat, but you know how you have to play against it. And the opposing teams are starting to figure out. So now it's up to Sari to either make us better at it or figure out a way to tweak the system so that it's not so easy to beat.
Well, we're going to have to figure something out because as it stands, Chelsea down in 4th place, Tottenham jumping up to 3rd, Arsenal dropping to 5th. We've only got a goal differential lead over Arsenal right now. We're 2 points behind Spurs, 8 points behind Liverpool, and now 10 points behind City in 1st place. Next match, big one. It's City, and obviously we don't pick up points. You're assuming Arsenal are going to beat Huddersfield, and Spurs, who knows what they'll do against Leicester. But either way, we've got the hardest match of the weekend.
5th place, here we come.
That is what is at stake, unfortunately. So anyways, that will wrap us up for this midweek special pod. Wish we could come to you under better circumstances, but it is what it is. We're not here to shy away from Chelsea losses. We just hope that this is the last one. David promised it. Anyways, David, thank you so much for joining us. Go check out We Ain't Got No History if you haven't. We post our podcast there. We essentially started there, so David and us go back a long time. Thank you. Give them a shout out. What's your guys' a little bit of history. What's your guys' social handles?
It's WAGNH_CFC on Twitter. And I think that's all a social. Find us on Facebook if you're into Facebook, if you're old enough.
You passed the age gate.
Yeah, if you're over 40 and you're doing Facebook, come find us on Facebook.
Love it.
Or
all right.
Twitter. Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, tweet at Nick. Tell him you missed him, but genuinely smashed with work. Mike, Dan, as always, a huge thank you. But that'll wrap us up. We will be back at the weekend looking at recording with Naz from Goal.com on Sunday post City. So, lateral movement. Don't even worry about that.
No, it's because he's a Manchurian. So we just figured someone from Manchester
Shout out
City.
to Naz.
Yeah,
Mancunian. Anyways, David, it'll be good to see you in London here in a few weeks. Everyone else started rambling. We're going to wrap this one up. Catch you at the next weekend, I guess, after the next match on Monday. All right, Chelsea fans, until next time you need to do.
We'll see David in London.
He said that.
And this is where it all falls apart, right as I try to end it.
You are clipping like mad, FYI.
That's fair. I'm recording locally. Anyways, fans, until next time, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.